Hello team and welcome back to the Process Throwdown Update Show Recap Edition. The goal today is to talk about the Process Throwdown, some lessons learned, some things we're going to carry forward into our training from a programming standpoint, some reasoning behind the why, what and how behind each event that you guys did, and just a bit of a general chin wagging catch up after a fantastic 3 weeks. So to kick things off, let me introduce my two friends either side of me. Of course, we've got Ant Haynes, who's been here for all of our update shows.
Hello.
And we do have Mr. Alex Younger. Welcome to the studio, Al.
Hello, team.
Bringing Al into the studio today because he was a vital part of the programming of the workouts and would love to hear some of his thoughts on kind of how we came up with these 3 or 6 events. So to kick things off, we're going to talk about programming to begin with. And the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of just general thoughts that we think about when it comes to programming for a competition. So I think something that we all probably saw was quite unique in this Process Throwdown was it was 3 weeks, but we had 6 events tested. And perhaps I'll hand it over to you to start. What is the advantage of having more events versus less events?
Well, obviously, when you got such a short period of time, like 3 weeks, just giving it a 2-part just allows for more interjections between each athlete on the leaderboard. Of course, there's going to be different types of energy systems tested. Generally, if you go a 2-part workout, of course, in terms of athletes, in terms of strengths, they'll look at often part A. They'll be ready to attack it, ready to go gung ho. And then they might hate part B or vice versa, but you still got to earn the right to do whichever part it is. So I think it just allows for a lot more creativity, allows you to test a lot more forms of fitness and a lot more complexity as well if needed. But it also, like I said, allows the leaderboard to kind of jump around a little bit more without stretching people out over a 5 or 6 week period.
Nice. Al, anything to add?
Yeah, I think like something like the Open where you have 5 weeks to test, with us only having 3 weeks, having the 2 parts just gives us more variance to be able to test with. It gives us like a 2 parts per session or per event. It gives us like a good test to move through.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the challenges that we had was that we knew that, especially for a lot of our affiliate subscribers, and of course ourselves here at Coastal, was trying to fit 2 events each week into a 1-hour window. And of course, if we're thinking about for those who are running this as a group class, including adequate time for warm-up, preparation, cool-down, strategy, all those kind of things. So the way that we actually designed these workouts was to try and be a little bit more on a time-conscious, time-savvy side. So kind of the way that we integrated each of the 2-part workouts each week, I thought was kind of cool. And we had a real variety of tests. So I think the next thing we should talk about now is kind of like looking at the variety of tests. But before we get into each of the individual tests, Al, what were you thinking about, or what were kind of we thinking about when it came to designing these 6 workouts? What are we looking to do in a competition?
I mean, the first thing would be to make sure that it's a balanced test. So each of the workouts is a different stimulus. Some were heavy, some were longer, some were more endurance biased. So it's good to, whatever we're programming for, obviously to find the fittest person in live, perform and compete, that the tests throughout those are balanced. So you have a bit of everything when we're going through this.
Yeah, so obviously something that's not a balanced set of tests is going to be a biased set of tests, which may, we often see sometimes in competitions, a set of workouts leaning towards favoring the stronger athlete or the more enduring athlete or the more gymnastic savvy athlete or the more barbell biased athlete. So really the goal was to try and balance it out as much as possible. And anything to kind of add on top of that?
No, not really. I like Al said, I think especially with us having 3 different programs, I guess with the Live, Perform, Compete, it is important that we do keep it as inclusive as possible and we have a very similar stimulus hit across the 3 workouts. What you don't want is, the live athletes getting an aerobic style feel or stimulus for the workout, and suddenly you speak to compete guys, they're like, that was just so heavy, I burnt out straight away. They never even got to use or show their aerobic system or capacity. So it's important that you have that same stimulus across, but also like Al said, just having a good balanced test of fitness, which often, especially with kind of CrossFit throwing out the ability for other people to create competitions now with sanctionals, often you see, like you said before, a strength biased athlete really excelling in certain competitions, or an aerobic based endurance based athlete really kind of showcasing their stuff at certain events. So to be level-headed across the board and give everyone a good opportunity to show where they can shine is really important as well.
Yeah, I think something else is to add on top of that. Something we were thinking about was across our 3 training groups, we have 3 very different goals. The Live program aren't really kind of training for any sport in particular at all. They're looking for balance, health and fitness, develop strength, movement, mobility across a broad variety of different energy system domains. Whereas when we look at our Perform and our Compete subscribers, those guys and girls actually have an invested interest in the sport of CrossFit. So what we did also want to achieve was similarity across the 3 groups in terms of what the training was or what the events we're testing. We knew that if we could keep each event really similar, it's actually going to help bring our community together a little bit more versus having a completely different test for each of our 3 training groups and kind of everyone feeling like they just were different from one another. Yep. So that was also one of the goals. So, when we look especially probably more at our Perform and Compete tests, we definitely aired more towards a kind of simplicity side of programming. We didn't have that much complexity in terms of movements involved. We kept a lot more pure events and movements that tested the actual expression of fitness and capacity much more so than how much someone had refined a particular skill. That is something we'll probably save for other competitions and events we do further down the line. For example, if we run a throwdown where we invite maybe other athletes from around the world to take part in it, or maybe just one for our Perform, just one for our Compete, or even just one for our Live program, we could really then bias the movement and the test towards something they've actually been training for a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about perhaps each of the individual events that we tested. So let's quickly dive into it. I don't want to spend too long on this. Let's keep it to a couple of minutes for each one. Let's talk first about event 1. And I'm happy to kind of take this one away because, when it came to programming the events, usually myself and Al kind of sit down. We program a lot of the Saturday testers together. And how it usually works is I'll throw down an idea to start, or Al will throw down an idea to start, and then we just basically bounce ideas off each other until we find something that we're both kind of content with. What that usually looks like is me being a bit too conservative and a bit too easy, Al being a bit too aggressive and too hard, and each of us kind of pulling each other the opposite way to try and find the middle ground. Exactly. So what I did want to have in this first one was I remember seeing this event, and I think you and Tammy actually took part in something very similar at DFC 2016. I think it was. There was an event where there was a row into a run, and it finished with a row, and there was.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that event?
That was three. It was kind of 3 rounds. You basically had a 500-meter row followed by a 1.6K run, followed by a 500-meter row, and then 800-meter run. Sorry, 1,200, 500 meters, and then basically finish off a 400-meter run and a 500-meter row. Your part A score was your total time taken, and your part B score was your slowest 500-meter row.
Yeah, and I remember just always seeing that event, thinking that was quite cool that they created 2 events from that, and athletes didn't have to move from kind of one event floor to another. It was just integrated a part of the event. I thought that would be cool in an event like this where athletes had the opportunity to kind of sell their soul a little bit, which was why kind of part A was a 1K row as fast as you possibly can, kind of some scaled down reps for the females and other divisions, and then but still have a fairly large chunk of work to do. And I kind of transferred a little bit over to event 2 as well, but kind of in event 1, what we're looking for is kind of looking at aerobic power and the ability to dig really deep and hit a fast 1K, but then a really great aerobic system to then be able to hang on, move through a bunch of burpees, and then get back on a row and finish with another 1K. So yeah, anything you guys have to add on that first event?
I just thought the 2 point or the 2 scoring on the first piece of the first workout, it just lulled people into selling their soul on the first K row, which I think if it was just a 1 score would have been a different story, and I think the leaderboard would have looked slightly different. But I think that the 2 point or the two-piece scoring on that first piece was probably the best version of all of them, I think, of the 2 scores.
Yeah, we didn't really have anyone who won both part A and part B, which was good because it kind of stirred up the leaderboard a little bit. And anything to add?
No, I think a lot of people, when they actually saw myself and Izzy do it in the gym, they were going like, oh, it's not too bad. It's just a bit of rowing, some burpees, some rowing. But then, like you said, there's a lot of strategy that comes involved. Do you have the engine to be able to back it up and almost recover throughout the burpees while still hitting them at a fast pace, and then hit that last 1K row again? But yeah, I think it was a really good test, and it was cool to see people. It sounds a bit sadistic, but suffer through those burpees, then have to pick themselves back up again, and then go for like another 3+ minute row. Yeah, it was good to see that.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to event 2. So we knew that we knew that in this competition, we needed to have a max lift of some sort. We wanted to test the strength element. And when we talk about the strength element, of course, you got a bunch of different tests you could do. Test absolute strength, maybe a deadlift, a squat, or a strict press, like we're seeing tested at the games numerous times now. Or of course, you could go kind of like the Olympic lifting side of things. And we decided to go for something like a clean because we knew that it was going to be a little bit more kind of inclusive, less chance of risk of injury as well. Well, maybe not. But at least it was something we could test across our 3 groups because we don't really snatch in the live group. Al, what were your thoughts kind of behind this workout? Because I know, that first workout is something you kind of lick your lips over.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we look at the rep scheme and the thrusters, the first piece, very similar to like a CrossFit Classic, which is Fran. Gymnastic elements on Fran tends to be what slows people down. So taking away the gymnastic element and adding something that most of us have had exposure to, like a box jump, just means people can elicit the right response through that first 21:59, which I think it did, to be fair.
Yeah, and we also meant that we knew that pretty much everyone was going to finish within a certain time, given that the way we ran it was very much like the open workout, which was dumbbell front squats, bars, burpees over the bar, then into a clean within a remainder of a time. We also kind of chose that format to ensure that the workout would finish at the same time for everyone. And that kind of also, it's a lot easier to run kind of if you're running it as a class, but also kind of brings everyone really into the same focused time, versus take 5 minutes after you finish then build your clean, and kind of everyone's finishing at different times. There's less kind of intensity. That's kind of what we wanted to create. And have you got any thoughts on that second event?
No, I do love the fact that it really exposed both movements in terms of people being efficient or inefficient at them. I think everyone can do 100 box jumps in a row. Everyone can do 100 thrusters at a light load, with broken sets. But as soon as you combine the two, suddenly people are just like in a completely different world, a world of hurt. People just could no longer execute the box jump efficiently. People were catching it hinged over at the hip. Suddenly the thrusters start to suffer. And it's just cool, like Al said, you're taking a classic CrossFit style rep scheme and making it a really simple but horrible complex in terms of the knee flexion into knee flexion again.
Yeah, nice. And I think the last one on that was that we wanted to give people enough time to actually have a crack at hitting something heavy. So sometimes we see in these type of workouts a very small time period left, maybe 2-3 minutes for someone to try and hit something heavy. We deliberately extended that out a little bit to give people a chance to kind of have anywhere up to kind of 5 lifts in that time to allow people to really express themselves. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's move into our last workout, which I thought was a really cool workout. I'll have to give credit to you for kind of the general format of kind of the fight gone bad style into complete this for time. And I know a lot of people who did the workout thought it was very novel, very different, and a really simple but 2 very, very different tests. Talk us through kind of your ideas behind how that came about.
So yeah, Fight Gone Bad was my first ever CrossFit workout, and it's always just being part of it, being part of like my favorite workout I think I've ever done. So having the 3 back-to-back minutes where you're accumulating reps, everybody can do that, which is cool. So it's universally scalable for everybody. Everybody can go through that. You could do 1 toaster bar or 1 knee raise within the minute, but then you're having to then push for that second piece to get that second score, which I thought was just a nice little finisher for that piece.
Yeah, awesome. And
I think this was, I think across all 3 groups, a lot of people looked at this workout and thought it was far too easy on paper. You see a lot of people's comments on the leaderboard thinking like, ouch, 3B really hit me hard. Suddenly trying to go unbroken through the A work, and suddenly you have to do 50 reps of a dumbbell snatch, which you have done unbroken for 30 reps in the 3A part. Suddenly you can't even do like 20 plus reps. And, it was that kind of the wall at the 12 minutes, which suddenly hit them. And it kind of took a lot of people by surprise. But again, really cool to see the pacing element. The people that did pace it well on the leaderboard generally did well in A and B. There wasn't many people that had like a flying score on one and then, a real downer on the next one. So I think both parts were executed well by the top guys.
It's unusual to see in a testing format for there to be like a designated rest scheme as well, which I think definitely lulled people in on that first piece to be like, okay, I'm going to push because there's a minute rest anyway. That's quite a long period of time to rest, but then having to restart and go through the 50, 40, 30, I think definitely took people by surprise.
I mean, it really surprised me watching people do it. I mean, I know
When
that
you did it?
I was supposed to. I know I was supposed to do it, but my body had other ideas. But thank you to Tammy. She did a half decent job at standing in for me.
It was all right.
But to be honest, that was basically our first test of the workout. And I understand Sad's capacity is a little bit more because I train with him every day, but Tammy just made that workout look extremely easy. And I definitely had a couple of days thinking, I don't know if we've made this one hard enough for a final workout of what's been already an epic 2 weeks. But then we had one of our athletes do it who's in the Live program. He was the first guy to do it. And his quote was, "That was the hardest workout I've ever done in my entire life." And, that was with a knee raise. And as soon as I heard that, I was kind of like, okay, this is definitely going to challenge people and challenge them the right way. So this is going to be a great way to finish off the throwdown. Okay, I want to move on to the next part, which is talking about kind of things that surprised you guys in this competition. So maybe this is a favorite moment. Maybe this is something that kind of caught you by surprise. Ant, let me start with you.
I mentioned it before in our final update show, just the amount of buy-in that we had from everyone, not only in Hong Kong and other people in Hong Kong as well, but Indonesia, our affiliates that are part of the Process program as well. It's really cool to see that, but also people dragging their mates in and kind of licking their lips and being hungry to compete again and wanting to be a part of it. I think with COVID and kind of the crazy 2020 that we've had, it's been nice for people to be able to come together and throw down and slap each other in the ass and have a really good time with this sort of stuff, especially over 3 weeks, and for people to stick at it as well. It's been really cool.
Yeah, nice.
It's a really nice end to the year, I think, for most people that were involved with it, which is cool. It's cool to have those 3 weeks of throwing down, which most of us haven't had the opportunity to this year. So it was good for everybody to get involved with. My favorite moment, though, I think, for me, has to be the heavier cleans on the second one. It's just, I love watching people weightlift under fatigue. I think it's just a cool aspect of CrossFit.
Yeah. I mean, I echo both the thoughts that you guys put out there. I think something that really caught me by surprise in a really, really positive way was this is the first ever competition we've run for the Process Throwdown. This is also the biggest our community's ever been worldwide, and wasn't really kind of sure how it was going to go. We were very lucky that WADUP had just created this new Throwdown page, which basically gave us a chance to kind of separate it from how we normally deliver workouts and have this just purely competition page, had its own chat forum every single day, had an updated leaderboard, people could put their videos in there, and just seeing the conversation on that water cooler is basically what they call the chat forum, every single day was just positivity across the board for 3 weeks. Yep. People kind of encouraging each other, liking each other's performances, kind of congratulating each other on every single week, saying thanks to the team behind what kind of we created. And I just thought that was really, really cool. And it's made me really realize the value in doing these kind of community-based events, whether it's a competition or just a friendly throwdown or something that's going to bring our wider community together. And I just think it's going to strengthen us even more going forward. And for some people, this is the first ever competition they've done and they absolutely loved it. For seasoned people who've been doing the sport for a really long time, they were still just as fired up about it and kind of, nothing but praises for the competition. I'm really looking forward to seeing if that momentum now carries over into something like the CrossFit Open, if that's going to go ahead. And hopefully we see another really, really strong community effort there.
So you're going to bring yourself out of a 3 week deload after deloading through this competition?
So I deliberately deloaded this
6 week deload
because I'm actually peaking for the CrossFit Open.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so this was strategic in my yearly plan. Cool. I'm basically coming after Tammy this year.
Good.
Okay, so let's take this forward now before you boys rinse me any further, and let's talk about programming. Now, something we do every single week in the Process programming is we do Saturday testers. Saturday tester is essentially kind of a workout that's broken away from the focus and the structure of a normal training week, and we basically just throw some random craziness at our subscribers. We include it with a video every Thursday where we're talking about the workout, talking about movement standards, talking about things like pacing. And the idea is to kind of just get people into honing in the skill of competing so that when they do a competition, it's not completely foreign and it's just kind of a bit of fun. It's a great kind of community-based event. And so with every Saturday tester, though, like everything else we do on the Process programming, we're looking at the results of our subscribers and we're taking the results and the data that they log and we're using that to dictate programming going forward. So looking at this competition, kind of handing it to you boys first, what are some things that you saw generally could be good, could be kind of areas or opportunities of work-ons? What did you notice across our three groups of things that we probably need to improve on as a community?
Well, I was going to say the first thing that I noticed was a good side was actually the people's ability to hit some heavier loads under fatigue. I think we touched on it before when we actually covered event 2 that, you know, I can't remember the last time I saw like five plus cleans being hit over 130 kg. So that's been really cool to see. I think one thing I'm also happy to see was people's toes to bar. You know, with the Process program, we've done a lot of focus on strict strength and kind of shoulder health, and people were still able to shine even though they hadn't had much exposure to kipping work over the last 4 to 8 weeks. I think that was really cool to see. In terms of work-ons, I think the execution of movement standards, and I think a bit of onus comes onto us as well. We should take responsibility the fact that we didn't actually put out a pure movement standard video. You know, but having said that, I think people just need to be a little bit more careful and a bit more mindful when executing movements. You know, whether that's in the week leading up to it, whether that is in your warm-up, you know, movement standards should be obviously as much as possible met as you go through it. And, you know, with CrossFit as well, if you're going to look to do something like a sanctional or, you know, try qualify for the CrossFit Games, it's unforgiving. If you have a slight misjudgment on a movement, then you're not going to get that rep. So I think that's something that we probably need to work on as a community to get a little bit better at.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is just making sure that in the training process, we're thinking a little bit more about clean repetitions, meeting the movement standards. Yeah. Then, of course, in a competition, that's where it matters the most if you're someone who kind of enjoys competition. But, you know, like you said, we didn't put out a video this year. We kind of wrote out all the standards and we kind of took for granted and assumed that people would read that. But I think we need to step up our game next time and make sure we're giving people clear, observable standards for them to then execute in the workout. Sure. Al?
I think the biggest thing for most people, especially with there being 2 parts or 2 scores for most of the events or all the events, I think pacing is a huge one, and we do talk about it every Saturday tester. But I think it is something that people need to just be a bit more aware of their own capacity moving into a workout, and then how to gauge where to push, where to pull back, how they're going to game plan a workout, because all of the workouts were very different tests, so they kind of made different people shine throughout each of the workouts. So I think people need to understand where they can start to push and where they can need to kind of hold back, and understand that pacing is going to be key to get them through the workout.
Yeah, I think the people who haven't done competition before got real caught up in, you know, people on their left and right, and just kind of, oh God, they're pulling a 145, I need to pull a 144 in that first row, and suddenly you got to do 40 burpees and repeat again. It's kind of hit them very hard. But again, it's like a learning process. You know, everyone learns through experience. So hopefully it's something that we live and learn and get through in the future.
Yeah, no, I think you said it. You banged it. You nailed it on the head there, which is you learn so much in these kind of situations and scenarios. And if you don't put yourself out there to even potentially screw up and make these mistakes, then you're never actually going to learn. So I know that a lot of people, you know, just reading their feedback on the leaderboard have already started the journey of self-reflection, which is really cool. Kind of what would they have done differently if they were to do it again? And that's really what it's all about. Because, I mean, in training, when do we ever really go full tilt at a workout 2159 and then ask someone to hit heavy clean? We don't really do it. Similarly, that last event 3 test was really unique, that most people probably have never ever done that style of workout, especially with those movements. And so again, that's just more tools that people now have in their toolbox to access in future workouts. Okay, great. So I think kind of takeaways from this is, you know, we've outlined and highlighted that we're pretty surprised at the strength of our athletes, especially under fatigue, able to hit loads that have never ever seen loads like that ever lifted on our Live, Perform and Compete program. I mean, I was actually blown away at the strength of our Live females who were hitting, you know, 60 kilograms plus very consistently on those cleans across the board. You know, our Perform and Compete males and females all hitting some amazing loads there, and kind of every year we usually use the CrossFit Open as kind of our benchmark as to where our subscribers are at. And that's just like taking a big jump every single year. Now, I know our subscriber base is bigger than it ever has been before, which means you're going to have more anomalies. But as a general whole, if you're taking the average of each group, definitely improving, which is definitely going to dictate kind of how we program now. It means that we can start to play with heavier loads and more complexity in our programming and know that it's actually going to be appropriate for our subscribers.
Yep.
Okay. What else did we learn? So something I think just to close out on here, and you just kind of touched on it there, which was about movement standards. And kind of, I think in our reviewing process where we're going through and validating all the videos of our top 3 within each division, we definitely learned a lot as a programming team, and the rest of process programming coaches kind of in our general discussions was that there's definitely an area of opportunity here. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we said, it's small, minor details, but a lot of the time those minor details will be, magnified massively when you're put under the microscope of going to a bigger competition or whatever it might be. So yeah, like just tidying up the movement standards, but again, it falls on us as well to be able to put those movement standards out there and to make it just, black and white. There's no gray area at all. So I think in each workout there was area for improvement, whether it's the burpee, jumping with 2 feet. I think that was one of the main ones that people messed up on, whether it's just a skill that you haven't practiced one side. And like you said, you got to practice a stricter movement standard within your training so that when it comes to competition, it like the back of your hand. It's just natural to move well. In the second workout, the box jumps, maybe a few people weren't standing up to full extension all the way. And it's literally like you have to make it look so ridiculous sometimes just to make it crystal clear. With that as well, the thrust to box jump combination, just the way you film it, being side on. That's something that a lot of competitions and I guess governing bodies will ask for in terms of your filming standards. And on that last workout, small things like both heads of a dumbbell touching the floor, small things like the wall ball, the middle of the wall ball hitting above the target line. Again, something that a lot of the people in our live category, they're very new to. We always ask people to move well, and we wouldn't ask people to move to a standard which they can't maintain tension at, for example. So when it comes to a competition, they've never been told you have to squat below parallel now. And suddenly they're like, oh God, I've got to meet this crazy standard, which I don't feel comfortable doing. But again, as you said, you learn through experience and you learn through, I guess, failing, but also succeeding. So as long as they take something away from it, and when they execute it next time, hopefully we see a better standard in terms of the movement and a better understanding of it all as well.
Yeah, so I think we definitely have taken something that we can learn from it as a team putting out these competitions. Al, in terms of kind of how we, when we reviewed everyone's videos, we definitely did err on the side of leniency.
For sure. And I think for most people, or a lot of people, this is the first time they've actually videoed themselves going through a full tester style workout. So, I mean, that's a skill in itself, being able to video it. And like for some of these guys and girls they've never actually watched a workout of themselves going through burpees over a row before.
Yeah.
Like when you say to people, jump with 2 feet, and they say, I am. But then you watch the video back and you're like, well, you're not.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like people's interpretation of movement standards when you watch a video back, which is, I think for us, like going through it, there was a lot of people that were struggling with the standards were people that haven't videoed themselves before.
Yeah. So I think definitely a takeaway message and a lesson for everyone to learn here is the importance of videoing yourself. And, just in that videoing, number one, making sure that you're meeting the standards. And if you notice that you're not, work on that in your training. It's a skill just as much as we work on improving our pull-up or our toes to bar or our snatch. Making sure we're meeting standards all the time is a skill that should be honed in the training setting, not in the competition setting. And then I think also, watching your performances and learning from them. What did I do well? What are 3 things I executed really well in this workout? What could I do better? And then, making sure you're taking those lessons and bringing it over into your next workout.
For sure.
Well, guys, that concludes our final show of the Process Throwdown. It's been an absolute pleasure having you two alongside me today. I think an honorable mention to our video girl, Kiara, who's done an incredible job at making these videos look very sexy and entertaining.
Triple C.
The champ. I have to also say thank you to the amazing team at Coastal Fitness and Process Programming, the rest of the coaching team who's been a part of providing feedback, reviewing the videos, helping construct these workouts, but also in terms of all the training we've done over the year to help build this community. Massive thank you to them. I also want to say a massive thank you to our amazing operations team here at Coastal Fitness and Process Programming, led by Izzy, who does a lot of grunt work behind the scenes. She gathered our amazing sponsors and was able for us to take this crazy idea and bring it forward to you guys and display it in a really short amount of time. So just thank you. It's been a really massive team effort. It's made this job really easy for us. But of course, a massive thank you to, of course, our sponsors, but you guys who've supported, taken part, and kind of throw down with this massive community. Thanks for having and making this just a really fantastic way to end 2020. From the update show, that's it from us. Hope you guys have had a great time. Merry Christmas.
Toodaloo.